Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive.
It's great to be here.
Today we're diving into the world of local politics.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, we're heading to Temecula, California,
Interesting.
to explore how much influence a single political action committee, or PAC, can have on a community.
Got it.
Our main source for this deep dive is a fascinating article called The Rise and Influence of One PAC, Temecula's Power Struggle Unveiled.
Sounds like a juicy one.
It is. And it really gets you thinking about the power dynamics in local politics.
Yeah, definitely.
So to set the stage, PACs can play a surprisingly significant role even at the local level.
Oh, absolutely. They can really shape things.
Like what kind of things?
I mean, everything from school board policies to
Okay.
city council decisions.
Wow. So they have a direct impact on people's lives.
For sure. And that's why understanding groups like One PAC is so important.
Right. Because this article makes you wonder, can a single PAC actually control local politics?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is. And to really understand One PAC, we need to grasp the specific context of Temecula's political landscape.
Yeah, I agree. Context is key.
So One PAC sort of bursts onto the scene in 2022,
Okay.
in the middle of all this rising political tension. And their mission statement sounds pretty idealistic on the surface,
Like what?
promoting stability, responsible policies, and nonpartisan governance.
Interesting.
But right away, they position themselves in opposition to another group, the Inland Empire Family PAC,
Also known as?
i.e. Family PAC.
Okay, so you've got this kind of us versus them dynamic already.
Yeah, and it's interesting how One PAC frames themselves as defenders against what they see as extremism.
Right, establishing that us versus them dynamic can be a powerful way to rally support, but it can also further divide a community.
It's a double-edged sword.
Definitely.
It seems like One PAC was trying to tap into this desire for unity and moderation,
Okay.
presenting themselves as the antidote to the more extreme views of i.e. Family PAC.
Right, trying to appeal to those who are looking for a middle ground.
Exactly. Now, to understand that dynamic, we need to take a closer look at i.e. Family PAC.
And their leader.
Pastor Tim Thompson.
Yep, he's a key figure in all of this.
They represent a conservative Christian perspective,
Okay.
advocating for policies that are rooted in
What they see as?
traditional family values and a more traditional approach to education.
Got it.
For example, they strongly oppose teaching critical race theory.
Right. CRT has become a really hot-button issue.
It has.
Yeah.
And for those who might not know, critical race theory is an academic framework.
Yeah, it's not just about teaching history.
Right. It examines how systemic racism is embedded in American institutions.
It's a complex and often misunderstood topic.
Definitely. So right off the bat, we see this clash of ideologies playing out in Temecula,
Right away.
with One PAC on one side,
Yeah.
i.e. Family PAC on the other.
Okay. Interesting setup.
And this clash becomes even more apparent during the 2022 elections.
The elections, things always heat up then.
They do. i.e. Family PAC endorsed 4 candidates for the Temecula Valley Unified School District Governing Board.
The school board, wow, that's a significant one.
It is. And 3 of their candidates won.
Okay, so they gained a majority.
Yeah, Joseph Komrosky, Jen Wiersma.
Danny Gonzalez.
So now they have the power to enact policies that reflect their ideology.
Exactly, which is exactly what they did.
Give me an example.
They banned critical race theory in schools.
Okay, so they followed through on their campaign promises.
And they also implemented a policy requiring parental notification for changes in students' gender identities.
Wow, that's a pretty controversial policy.
Very controversial. It really exposed the deep ideological divisions in Temecula.
Yeah, I can see how that would be divisive.
And it directly challenged One PAC's message of unity.
So how did One PAC respond to this?
Well, their initial foray into electoral politics wasn't nearly as successful.
Oh.
They endorsed several candidates, but only one of them won.
Okay, and who is that? Allison Barclay?
I see, and she just barely squeaked by.
By a very slim margin.
So their message wasn't resonating as widely as they might have hoped.
It seems that way.
Interesting.
And they weren't exactly shy about calling out i.e. Family PAC as extremists.
Oh, really?
They even went so far as to pressure third-party candidates to step down in some races.
Wow, that's aggressive.
It is. Their rhetoric really ramped up during this period.
What do you mean?
They were using fear-based appeals
Oh.
to paint i.e. Family PAC as this threat to Temecula's values and way of life.
That kind of fear-mongering can be effective in mobilizing a base.
Right.
But it also often leads to increased polarization, erosion of trust within a community.
It's a dangerous game to play.
It can be.
And it makes you wonder if One PAC's focus on unity was genuine.
Or just a convenient way to frame their opposition to, i.e. Family PAC.
Exactly. Like, were they really about bringing people together?
Or were they more interested in gaining power and influence?
Those are the questions we're going to explore. And to complicate matters further, there's this intriguing figure of Jeff PAC.
Okay, tell me about him.
He's a former journalist who becomes the public face of One PAC.
Interesting background.
He really drives their messaging.
Yeah, in what way?
Presenting One PAC as the good guys,
The protectors of.
The protectors of Temecula's institution.
I see. But you mentioned earlier that things weren't quite so clear-cut behind the scenes.
Right. While PAC effectively conveyed this image of One PAC as a force for good,
Okay.
their actions often painted a more complex picture.
Interesting.
Particularly when it came to their 2022 voter guide.
The voter guide.
A voter guide seems like a pretty standard tool for a PAC, right?
Yeah, on the surface it does.
But there were questions about its transparency,
Yeah.
potential bias.
So even though they claim to be nonpartisan,
Right?
the guide clearly favored candidates who aligned with their worldview.
Some critics even questioned whether they were fully transparent,
About
the criteria they used to endorse candidates.
So it wasn't as straightforward as they made it seem.
It wasn't. So even as they were accusing, i.e. Family PAC, of extremism,
Right.
One PAC was engaging in some questionable tactics themselves.
A little bit of a double standard.
It seems that way. And as criticism of One PAC grew,
Okay.
Jeff PAC's responses became increasingly defensive.
Oh, really?
He started framing any concerns as personal attacks and portraying himself as a victim of this hostile political landscape,
I see.
which raises questions about One PAC's willingness to engage in genuine dialogue.
And self-reflection.
Exactly. It seems like their commitment to unity and open discourse was starting to unravel.
That's a common theme in politics, isn't it?
Sadly, it is. So what happens next?
Yeah, do they change their approach?
Or do they double down?
I guess we'll find out.
We'll explore all of that and more in part 2 of our deep dive into One PAC and the political landscape of Temecula. Stay tuned.
Can't wait.
Okay, so we're back, and One PAC is facing a real predicament.
Yeah, a bit of an identity crisis.
Their message of unity. It wasn't hitting home the way they'd hoped.
Not really landing.
Plus, their tactics were starting to backfire.
Yeah, pushing people away.
And now they're dealing with this newly elected school board
Right.
enacting policies they vehemently opposed.
Like a direct challenge to their vision.
It really was.
Mm.
So the school board now has this conservative majority,
Thanks.
i.e. Family PAC's endorsements.
Right.
And they're pushing forward with things like the critical race theory ban and those parental notification policies.
Yeah, those are big wins for IE Family PAC.
They were. So for One PAC, this was a major setback.
Absolutely. A clash of values.
They'd presented themselves as defenders of Temecula's institutions,
Right.
advocates for inclusivity. And now the school board was implementing these policies.
Which they saw as
Discriminatory and harmful.
Yeah, it really ignited a sense of urgency within the group.
Like they had to choose between their commitment to unity, their desire to fight back against policies they saw as deeply unjust.
It's a tough spot.
It is. And it seems like initially they opted for the latter.
To fight back.
Yeah, they shifted away from that more moderate approach,
Towards
a more aggressive confrontational strategy.
So they leaned into the conflict.
They did. And this shift was fueled in part by
An alliance.
an alliance with a group of teachers
Features.
who were deeply concerned about the direction the school district was headed in.
These teachers felt like the new policies were
Detrimental to?
detrimental to students,
Especially
those from marginalized communities.
Right, and they were looking for a way to push back.
So One PAC became a vehicle
Where
for
these teachers' frustrations and anxieties.
Yeah, they provided a platform,
Resources
organizational structure,
to channel their concerns.
and mobilize against the school board.
I could see how that alliance would be appealing for both sides.
How so?
Well, the teachers get a powerful ally in their fight,
Right.
and One PAC gains a renewed sense of purpose, a more direct connection to the issues at hand.
Makes sense. It's a win-win situation.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
And it's important to note
Yeah.
that this shift towards a more activist approach
Right.
wasn't entirely out of character for One PAC.
How so?
Remember, they'd already shown a willingness to engage in hardball tactics,
Like pressuring those.
pressuring those third-party candidates to drop out of races.
Right. They weren't afraid to play rough.
They weren't. So it's like this activist streak was always there.
Simmering beneath the surface.
But it really came to the forefront in their fight against the school board.
The stakes were higher.
They were. And that fight brought with it some significant consequences,
Oh, yeah.
both for One PAC and for the broader political landscape in Temecula.
So what kind of consequences are we talking about?
Well, for starters, their aggressive tactics
They,
alienated some of their moderate supporters.
the ones who were initially drawn to that message of unity.
Exactly. Those people became uncomfortable with One PAC's increasingly divisive rhetoric.
And confrontational approach.
It's like they were losing sight of the middle ground.
The very people they initially claimed to represent.
Exactly. And their focus on attacking the school board.
It may have
blinded them to other issues and concerns in the community.
They became so fixated on this one battle. They neglected to cultivate broader support, address a wider range of community needs.
A classic case of tunnel vision.
It really is. You get so focused on winning,
You lose sight of...
everything else.
And ultimately, this narrow focus contributed to their decline.
How so?
They may have felt like they were gaining momentum in their fight against the school board.
Right.
But they were losing ground in the broader political landscape.
So their attempt to regain influence by becoming more aggressive
Actually backfired.
in a way, yes.
They may have gained some traction with the more activist elements,
but
they lost the support of those who valued moderation and compromise.
the middle ground again.
It's ironic.
How?
A group called One PAC,
With its...
with its emphasis on unity,
Right.
ended up exacerbating the divisions within Temecula.
It happens more often than you'd think.
It does. It highlights the challenges of navigating the complexities of local politics.
For sure.
Good intentions and lofty goals don't always translate into effective strategies.
Or positive outcomes.
So what about Jeff PAC?
Yeah, where does he fit into all of this?
How did he handle this shift in One PAC's approach?
Well, he was very much the driving force behind it.
Remember, he was already framing himself as a fighter, defender against extremist forces.
Right? The hero of the story.
This new, more confrontational strategy played right into that narrative.
He was ready for a fight.
He was. So he saw this fight against the school board as an extension of his mission to protect Temecula.
Protecting the town from itself.
And he embraced the language of activism.
Going so far as
to adopt the term woke.
To describe
One PAC's ideology.
Woke. That's a loaded term.
It is. Wasn't that term already being used by their opponents? Often in a derogatory way.
It was. Which is what makes PAC's decision so interesting.
So he thought he could reclaim the term.
Turn it into
a badge of honor.
I wonder if that strategy backfired as well.
That's a great question. And it's one we'll explore in part 3 of our deep dive.
Being forward to it.
We'll examine the consequences of One PAC's increasingly aggressive tactics. And the growing disconnect between their actions and their original message of unity and nonpartisanship.
Should be fascinating.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We're wrapping up our exploration of One PAC's in Temecula.
A story of ambition and maybe a little overreach.
They went all in on that aggressive activist approach.
Yeah, remember those teachers they aligned with?
Concerned about the school board's direction.
And Jeff PAC was even embracing the term woke to describe the group.
Oh, yeah. Woke.
It was a gamble.
It didn't quite play out the way they'd hoped.
No, it backfired in some pretty significant ways.
Okay, so break it down for me. How does embracing woke backfire when it sounded like they were already headed in that direction?
Well, they had a diverse group of supporters at first.
Right. Drawn to that unity message.
Exactly. But adopting a label often used to criticize progressive ideas. It pushed away those moderate voices.
They felt like One PAC was
less about bringing people together.
More about pushing a specific agenda.
Yeah, it raised doubts about their sincerity.
Like, were they truly committed to unity or just using it as a tactic?
Exactly. That's the perception problem they created.
And then there's Jeff PAC's own words to consider.
Oh, right. The private email.
Expressing doubts about candidates openly embracing LGBTQIA+ messaging.
Yeah, he was worried it would hurt their chances of winning.
Saying something like leading with that kind of messaging would make it harder.
Yeah, and that sentiment juxtaposed with his public embrace of woke ideology.
It created this perception of hypocrisy.
Totally. People started questioning One PAC's authenticity.
Like, were they really walking the walk or just talking the talk?
That's the question.
So they're alienating moderates with the woke label.
Right.
facing accusations of hypocrisy for not fully supporting the ideas they claim to embrace, all while locked in this battle with the school board.
Yeah, that consumed a lot of their energy and focus.
Tunnel vision.
Exactly. They were so fixated on that one fight.
They missed opportunities to connect with the wider community.
Yeah, build bridges with those who disagreed.
And address the broader needs of Temecula residents.
They lost sight of the big picture.
So even with the best intentions,
political action can become
counterproductive
if it's not grounded in a broader vision.
And a willingness to engage with the complexities of a community.
I think that's a key takeaway.
It is. One PAC's story is a reminder that the pursuit of political influence can be a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the fight.
Lose sight of your values.
In the heat of the moment.
And in the end,
their laser focus on the school board.
The divisive rhetoric.
And that perception of hypocrisy.
It all chipped away at their credibility.
Leading to their decline.
One PAC became a cautionary tale.
About sacrificing unity and authenticity in the pursuit of power.
So what can we, the listeners, learn from all of this?
I think it highlights the importance of critical thinking.
When it comes to
political groups.
Even those that align with our values.
Don't take their words at face value.
Look beyond the slogans and the labels.
And scrutinize their actions, their strategies.
Their willingness to engage in open and honest dialogue.
Yeah, transparency is crucial.
It's about making sure a group is truly serving the best interests of the community.
Not just their own interests.
True progress requires more than just passion.
And good intention.
It demands integrity.
Transparency.
And a willingness to build bridges.
Even with those who hold opposing views.
Yeah, that's a powerful message.
Thanks for guiding us through this deep dive into Temecula's political scene.
It's a story that has implications far beyond a single town.
It speaks to the dynamics of power, influence, and political action.
Playing out in communities across the country. To our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked some reflection.
About the political landscape in your own community.
Think about the forces at play.
The key players.
Are they serving the needs of the people?
It's a question worth pondering.
This has been The Deep Dive.
Thanks for listening.